Right now, let me go over to the source folder and create a store folder. The store folder is going to be where we are going to be handling everything concerning our Redux. And I'm going to import from Redux. The first one I'm going to be importing is the create store and also apply middleware. And at the bottom, I'm going to import the Tonk that we also installed from Redux Tonk. Whenever you're working with Redux, it's always mandatory that you have something called Reducer. So let's just go ahead and set up everything here before we go ahead and create the Reducer. So I'm going to initialize create a variable called initial state. Then beneath that, I'm going to create an array of middleware in case I have more or two middleware. You can just put them down there. And lastly, we can create our store. So whenever you create your store, the first thing it's going to accept is your root reducer, which we have not actually brought in. So, but I'm just going to put that down for now. And after the root reducer, we have to bring down our initial state, apply middleware, then we can spread our middlewares. So at the top here, it's going to comment this to be a reducer. I'm just going to be importing root reducer from. I'm going to create a folder called reducer. So over here, we can create a folder called reducers. And in our reducers, we can create a file called index.js file. So in our reducer is where we are going to be handling, let's say we have multiple reducers, is where we are going to be connecting everything together. So inside here, I'm going to be importing from Redux as well. What I wanted to import is called combine reducers. So combine reducers is what we are going to be using to join. Let's say we have multiple reducers. Let's say we have transaction reducer or user reducer. We can join it together. So I'm just going to export defaults combine reducers. So forgive me for using those auto recommendations, but it's kind of making our work more easier. So why I'm actually typing down transactions is because you're going to create a reducer called transactions. So I'm just going to create a reducer called transaction. Or let's just go ahead, or let me just quickly leave this for now. And as well, let me export this store. So we didn't export that, export default store. So back in our reducer, we can create a file called transactions. Our user is going to be exporting a switch statement that's going to be handling, let's say, an action types whenever we dispatch a reducer. So the first thing is to bring in our initial state. Our initial state is, let's say we have something like transactions. You can just store multiple transactions there, let's say in your initial state. But for now, let me just get rid of all those things. I think I'm making a lot of mistakes. I have to just take it easy from now on. So in our initial state, we have to export default. It's going to accept our state, which is the initial state. And lastly, it's going to be accepting action and payload. So I'm just going to be using the structuring and also the payload. We just have to export this function, and we can bring in the switch statements. We have to be switching with the type. Let me just return the default return state. For now, let's just return our state. Later, we are going to create our types, and then we can just connect everything. But back in our reducer, we can just let me kind of increase my font size. Let me go ahead and import our reducer. So I'm just going to import the transaction reducer from transactions. So down here, we can just name that transactions. Then we can now use the transaction reducer. So if we have, like I said, if we have multiple reducer, This is the way we are going to be connecting it, and then this is the way we are going to be making use of it. Okay, right now we have connected our reducer, and back in our store we have also connected our store. So we are ready to connect this Redux with our provider in order for us to use it around our application. So there is something called provider from React Redux. That's the way you can make use of your reducers wherever you want to make use of it. So at the top here, I'm going to be let me just comment this to be Redux. Oh my god, I'm going to be importing the provider from React Redux, but the provider is not just like that. We have to use the structuring to pull that out. Then we can wrap everything inside this navigation container. You can wrap it with the provider. So the provider is going to be accepting a store. Shortly we are going to be importing the store. Let me just wrap this for now. We can just come at the top here, import store from. Remember that we have it in source folder store. Because we created an index.js file, we just have to quickly use that like that. So I'm just going to save that, and it's going to refresh our application. We do not have an error. That is why application did not crash, but you can see our application is still working perfectly. So our application, the way it looks like now, is kind of somehow. Let's just go ahead and add a title to it. I'm going to bring down the options, which is going to accept a double object. So the title is going to be an expense tracker, and for the transaction as well, options, title, we can just call it add expense. So let's go ahead and save. Now we can do a hard reload right now to see the effect of what we just changed. So you can see it has changed my app title, and also for the add transaction, whenever we navigate to that route, we can actually see the title as well. So we are done connecting our Redux. So in next step, we are going to be starting with the home screen design, and then we can move forward from there. So right now in our home screen.js file, quickly at the top, we are going to be importing some things we are going to be making use of. We have the view and the text. Also, we have to bring in the style sheets, and also we have to bring in the flat list. So this flat list is what we are going to be using to handle the list of all our expenses. I'm going to be importing linear gradients from React Native linear gradients. So I think we had this installed, or maybe I just forgot, but quickly we are just going to add that. It's no issue. We also have to import some things from native base. So the first one to bring in is the button. We can also bring in the container. We can also bring in the checkbox. We can also bring in the body. We can also bring in what is called the right. Of course, in a list, you have something like left or right. Also, okay, for now, let's just go ahead and handle the design. I just quickly added this so you can use the yarn add React Native linear gradient. Maybe I was doing a mistake in the spelling. That was why we had that issue, I think. So I'm just going to clear this. I want to make sure that I have the right one, React Native linear gradient. So, and that's it. So we are done with that. So right now we have to import animated from React Native Ray animated. Oh, we didn't install that actually, but we are still going to install that as well. So I'm just going to wrap this with animated.view. So like I said, we did not install this. I'm just going to grab it, copy that, open our commander, and now we can paste that, use the yarn add flag, and let's just give it a couple of seconds to add. So we have that added. I'm just going to quickly clear that yarn Android. So while our application is running, let's just go ahead and add some couple of cool designs to it. So for this one, it's going to accept a style, and I want you to take off the whole width and the whole length. I want the items, line items, to center. So if you're familiar with CSS, these are not going to be an issue for you. So let me just scroll down a little bit. So what you just actually saw is Metro Bundler. So there's nothing much there. So I kind of expanded it because I want it to be a little bit fast. We can use the padding vertical of 10, and also the padding horizontal of 20. So inside here we just have to get rid of that text, and we can make use of our linear gradients. So for the linear gradients, it accepts some couple things. It's going to accept the first one, which is the colors, not actually the colors, sorry for that. So it accepts the colors, which is an object with an array. So the first one is FEAD3D. The second one is EFC9OA, and the third one is F1C So these are actually the colors that you saw in our application earlier when we started. So I'm just going to in between this. So the app is kind of starting, so that's why it's kind of slowing down our machine. We're going to put down a view, and we also have to apply a style sheet to this. So we have a style. Let's use styles.box. So this box, you can see, is we are going to create that shortly. So I'm just going to come at the bottom. Remember that we imported our style sheets. So we have the box, we have the width of 100%, we have the height of 189. We also have a border radius, because we want around the circles, of 15. We want everything inside it to have a flex direction of row, and also we want the padding to be 22. So let's go ahead and save, and you can see that nice looking yellow box, or something that looks very nice. I don't know how to explain it. So we forgot to wrap this on a container. I'm just going to quickly take this downwards. So I'm using Vim, that's why it's kind of fast. So I suggest you also learn Vim if you really love programming. It's something that really makes you enjoy programming. So I think padding horizontal is 20. So let's save that, because we don't want this at the edge of the border, so kind of misspell that. Right now inside this view, we have to add some couple of style to it as well, but we are going to be adding an inline styling for this one. We have the width of 70%. We also have to align the items to flex start, and in between the view, we now have to bring in a text. The text is also going to have an inline styling of font size 15, a color of white, a font family of Leto regular. Of course, we did not actually handle the issue of adding a font, but don't worry, we are just going to also do that shortly. You can use a font weight of 600. So over here we have the word, we are using the current balance. So let's save that, and you can see current balance just appeared at the top. So under that text, we have the initial Naira value. So we have the text. So we have a style of, with a font family of little medium. So once I finish this, we are going to be linking the fonts together. So we have the font size of 32. We also have the color of white. We have the font weight of 700. And now in between that, we can just add a default value for now. So I'm just going to go to Google, and to Google I'm going to search for Naira sign, because we're actually working with the Naira value. So I'm just going to quickly grab one. So Naira value it kind of makes sense. Let's add a 5,477.85 Naira. And let's save that, and you can see the Naira value just appeared with the money behind it. So under that text as well, you also have to add an inline styling. This is where our card details are going to be. So of course it's not an original card, so don't even think of withdrawing my money. So we have a color of white and a font family of little regular. The font size of 18, and also a font weight of let's add it a 700 font weight. And in between the text, we just want to add 4234 space 4 asterisk space 4 asterisk. Then we can add 6533. So you can see the card value over there, and you can see we have the left side settled, and the remaining part is the right side. So the right side, I'm not going to spend much time on that. I'm just going to grab that and paste that immediately. So right now you can see we have our complete card at the top, and that's it for that design. So it's something that is kind of not really hard. That's why I just went the way of copying and pasting that. Let me just kind of remove some code so that you don't get confused in some things. So let me just quickly remove that. But if you have been following along, you will have an understanding that we can actually design this if you're familiar with CSS. So these are some CSS rules I applied with some flex box and also some justification to it, and also adding a rounded border for our add a button. So you can see the button over here, we just added a border width of 3, and we added a border color of white to make it have a bold border. Then we added the background color with aligning the items and justifying the content as well to center. Then we padded it, and by default the button has a radius because of this rounded option over there. So that's why you can see this button the way it is. So there's nothing much there. So far you're familiar with CSS, you don't have to worry much about the design, but I also have the source code for you on the description. You can just grab that. So forgive me if that really hurts you, but we just need to get things going faster so that you can really enjoy the tutorial. So in the next part, we are going to be working on the list part of our application, where we have all our expenses, and I promise you on that one we are just going to take it gradually till we have everything designed together. Thank you. So we are done with the home screen design. Let's go over to add transaction and complete the design for the add transaction. The add transaction is not actually going to waste much of our time because we have little to do there. So the first thing I'm going to bring in is the style sheets. So I'm just going to close that sidebar, and under it we have to import some things also from native base. So the first one is the container. As usual, we have to bring in the header. I think I'm not making use of the header, I don't really need it. We have to bring in the content. We also have to bring in the form, the item, and as well as the input. So inside here we have to wrap everything here on a container. Oh, sorry guys for that typo. Just going to wrap everything there in a container. Then inside the container comes the content as well. Then inside that we have the form with the item. Now for the item itself is going to accept the inputs. So the inputs, where the first one is the email. So we have the place, not actually the email, the title. You have the title. It's called the expense title. But for here we have to add an inline styling as well of let me quickly create a style at the bottom. Const styles. Let me just scroll down a little bit. Style sheets dot create. We have to create an item. We have a margin vertical of 20. So that's the only thing we need for the style. So here I'm just going to spread that styles.item. Then you can just copy that down, and here we have the expense price. But the keyboard type for this one is going to be totally different. So we have the keyboard type of number pad. So that's it for the add transaction. So the next thing now is to come over to our home screen and make use of this button. So back in our home screen, we can actually get the navigation from our components, from the children props navigation, and as well as let's change this to expense, not actually a balance. So let's just go down. So let me just quickly go down here. So this happens to be expense, not balance. So we have that, and here whenever we click on the button, so we just have to add an on press. Whenever we click on that, we want navigation dot navigate. I think am I misspelling it? Navigation dot navigate. We want to navigate to the add route. So let's check that. So you can see right now we can be able to navigate to the add expense, and that is because in our app.js we also have that registered with that add word. Let's say over here I have it as add name. So you can see the add name there. That is why we are able to add that. So right now we are actually done with our design. And one more last thing is the button. But for the button, let's not talk about it for now. When we are about to start working on that, we can just quickly add it together. But for the next video, we are going to start working with our Redux and also grabbing data, and also we are going to sum up the data, and as well we can move on from there, and then we can have a full working application once we are done. So thank you for watching. Do make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe button.